everybody is born with a little something extra, and sometimes they just have to find it. A little something extra is that superpower that every single one of us has inside that motivates us and drives our passion and makes us do the things that we do.
We're all on the same team. Let's think about how we can make that team as inclusive as we can.
For those of you listening to our podcast right now, you can also check out our video podcast at alittlesomethingextrapodcast.org.
We are back from our podcast at A Little Something Extra with my mom and the GiGi, and first of all, my brother.
Yes, me as well. Thank you.
Franco Gianni in the
GiGi
house.
is doing great with my welcomings today.
Right?
Yes. We are joined by another guest as well.
Well, yeah, apparently on this new, so this is our 20th anniversary tour podcast year, which is like crazy insane because how can she be 20? How could I be 20 years older since this all started, right? And now all of a sudden this year she thinks that she starts every podcast.
She starts every podcast
She's
now.
the new welcomer. So thank you, Gigi, for that. You did awesome. You did awesome. But we have a really, really special guest that I'm very excited about. She's a New York Times bestseller. She's a podcaster. She's a storyteller, like an international global storyteller for my favorite subject, which is Down syndrome. So I'm really, really excited to introduce Heather Avis. We're so excited to have you from the Lucky Few. She's the founder of the Lucky Few.
She is.
I am the founder of Lucky Few. Hi, thank you for that introduction, everybody. So fun to get to be here with you guys. Oh, big fan.
Yes.
Big fan of all the GiGi everything.
Oh, well,
We're
we're
a huge
a
fan
big
of you
fan.
as well.
I think Franco's definitely obsessed with watching your Instagram and reading up on you and what you do because he is very big on acceptance through understanding. And that was a new campaign that he kind of had worked on. He's like, wait, she's doing it all right here. I'm just going to use her stuff.
I love it.
She's already doing it. It's perfect.
So yeah, I mean, Heather, I would love it if you could just, tell us a little bit about the story of the Lucky Few and of you too, and your
And your
whole journey
kids and
getting
all
here.
of it. Yeah, we want to hear it all, girl.
Okay. Okay, let's go way back. We'll keep it as brief as possible. So let's see, how far back do we go? My husband and I will go there.
Okay.
His name's Josh. We've been married for 20 years. We got married very young. I'm not that old, you guys, but we got married
I know
very young.
Gigi's is 20 years old. I don't know how that happened because I'm not old enough for
How's
that
this
either.
happened?
I know, a
How
lot of
does time
20-year
just fly
anniversaries
like
this year.
And we had a long journey into parenthood. We thought we were going to have kids naturally and had just that idea of we're going to have 3 kids that look like us who have no disabilities. And then this is our plan for life. And we thought we'd just move forward that way. And after years of infertility, we went down the path towards adoption. And it's a very long story, but we ended up finding out about a little girl with Down syndrome who'd been placed in the agency that we were adopting through. And it was through a passing conversation. We had no desire to have a child with a disability. We had said no to Down syndrome. She had just like a slew of health issues that she was born with as well. But we found out about her, and I talk about it. There was like a spark in my heart. Something changed in me once I read this email from our social worker. And I couldn't unknow that. And that just led us down this path towards making the decision ultimately to say yes to adopting Macy, who is our oldest. Her name is Mason Hope. And she came home at 3.5 months old with a giant hole in her heart. She'd already had a heart surgery, on oxygen 24/7, really, really sick, fragile little girl who happened to have Down syndrome. And there was she came home. We had about 3 weeks. We hear a lot in the Down syndrome space about like a diagnosis story, and there's often grief attached to that. And while we weren't anticipating or expecting or wanting even to have a child with Down syndrome, that grief period for us was really brief because we had 3 weeks between learning about her and bringing her home, essentially.
Yeah.
And so she came home, and I remember walking in the door with her, and very quickly and really within hours thinking like, okay, the reason that we were going to say no to this baby is because, first off, because of Down syndrome. And yes, for all these other medical issues. And again, it's a long story that we can unpack in another space. But really, it was because we didn't want a child with Down syndrome. That wasn't going to be our story. And yet here I was holding this little girl who was magic. She was just this incredible baby. She was a baby, a human baby with a
Totally.
full life,
Right.
worth every bit of it in my arms. And just that started the journey of trying to understand this disconnect between the narrative around what Down syndrome is, that society is telling me, that systems are telling me, that's built on this idea of ableism, versus what I'm learning as a mother to a child with Down syndrome, and then stepping into the Down syndrome space and meeting hundreds and then thousands of people with Down syndrome or people who love someone with Down syndrome. And our narrative is different than the narrative we were fed before we loved someone with Down syndrome. So something's missing there, right? There's a disconnect. And so that sparked when Macy was a baby. And then a few years later, we adopted another daughter, Truly Star, who has no disabilities. And then a few years after that, found out about a woman who was pregnant with an in utero diagnosis for Down syndrome and congenital heart defect. And we had the opportunity to create an adoption plan with her as well. And then brought home our son, August, who also has Down syndrome. And the kids are now 14, 11, and 9.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And so that's like how the family came to be. And then when Macy was born, it was 2008. And I started blogging like all the moms at home started doing in 2008. And I just started telling the story of Macy, like what I didn't know. I didn't know. You can't know what you don't know.
Totally.
And so I didn't know about this little girl with Down syndrome. I didn't know what being a mom with a kid with Down syndrome was like, obviously. And so I just started like sharing the day in and day out of having a child with Down syndrome. And then Instagram came along and we jumped on that platform. And I started having these moments of being in public with my daughter and realizing she's the only person here who has Down syndrome. And I feel so overwhelmingly lucky that I'm her mom. Like, this is my kid, this one here, the only one in the room with Down syndrome. She's mine. I'm so lucky. And I started using the hashtag the lucky few. And apparently it resonated with people in the Down syndrome community because it other people I noticed, like, you can follow a hashtag and it's just the first 50, 100 pictures, it's just Macy. And then I noticed other pictures starting to sprinkle into the hashtag, and it was always someone with Down syndrome. And then it just has taken off to almost be simultaneous with the Down syndrome story.
So
this
awesome.
Phrase, the lucky few, or this idea, like, we have a narrative to shift. And I've had the honor and privilege of attaching the word lucky to a Down syndrome diagnosis. And that's been the shift that's been my life's work since Mason's come home.
That is awesome. And I honestly, I did not know the whole story. I told you, that's how I was like, I don't even feel worthy to be introducing her because I know there's so much more to this that I don't even know. So I've been dying to be able to sit down and talk to you because I was like on your podcast, but you don't learn, you know, you don't learn all that. You don't know, you know that there's a big story back there, but you don't know what that story is, you know? So keep going. So that led you to, because that.
Yeah, because I know that there's a lot of different things that's happened with the Lucky Few along that it just being a hashtag. I mean, it's a whole brand now. So, how did you get to that point where, and like you just said, like you realize there's this bigger responsibility now, like you've identified, like you've attached the word lucky to the Down syndrome. So how did then?
I love that.
How did then blossom into this idea of storytelling and showing what Down syndrome really is from a real perspective of the people within it?
Yeah. So in those earlier years, like around 2014, 2013, maybe even, I had someone reach out to me on Facebook that she said, "Hey, I work for a publishing house. Would you ever want to write a book about your story? I've been reading your blog and following you on Instagram." And I thought, that'd be really rad. Sure, let's try that. And then that turned into a book deal. My first book came out in 2017 called The Lucky Few, and it was a bestseller. And I just found myself catapulted into this different space of being invited to speak at engagements and travel, and really had this platform that I had not been pursuing. It found me. It was like stepping into opportunity after opportunity to be able to, another phrase I put in the world is to be able to shout the worth of my kids with Down syndrome and with people with Down syndrome. And so I just was able to do that. And then that just kind of unfolded over the years. And I had another book deal after that for my second book which came out in 2019. In 2018, my husband quit his full-time salaried job to join me full-time in the work of the Lucky Few. We've had opportunities to do huge social media collaboration campaigns. We've worked and done back to school, like the entire back to school campaign for Gap Kids. We've done Disney World. We've done all these. We've got to collaborate with all these people where we're saying, hey, look, the story we're telling around Down syndrome is a story of a real life human being who is good with Down syndrome.
Yeah.
And they're going to show up in a space different and they're going to respond different. And the goal isn't to shift and mold them to be more like everyone else. No, the goal is to make a world where they get to show up exactly as they are and be celebrated and seen as worthy and have a voice and a space at the table. And so that really, it was just opportunities it was stepping into opportunities that just came our way. And then those two books led to my first children's book, which came out in 2021 and hit the New York Times bestsellers list. And I got to write another children's book, which came out last year. And then and then we started a podcast in 2017. We're celebrating 5 years of the number one Down syndrome podcast. And it's just been this deep desire to make a world where my kids with Down syndrome are embraced and loved as they are with Down syndrome.
Yeah, beyond awesome. I'm like, because I didn't really know the whole story, and your name is everywhere when you talk about Down syndrome and all the different things that are happening out there at all the playhouses. I think you've spoken at different events and you've been involved in so many different places where our playhouses are. So I think that there's so much cool energy around celebrating the positives of Down syndrome. But again, it's not always easy. What has probably been like your hardest moment, the biggest obstacle you've had to overcome?
I have a memory. When Macy was 5 years old, we were living in a city that had an organization that was a learning center for families who have kids with Down syndrome, a learning and support center essentially. And it was amazing. It was a lifeline for me. I cannot say enough good things about them and how much I love them. But I was in this class for parents. Macy was 5. She's doing her own thing, like getting all these different services on a Saturday. And I'm with the parents and we're being educated on ways to support our kids educationally mostly. And, it's like a lesson about, I don't know, how to help our kids tell time or these certain modifications or these adaptations that we can use to support our kid. And the person giving the lesson, she very casually said, and isn't that why we're doing all of this? So our kids with Down syndrome are more like their typical peers. And then she kept teaching. And I was like, oh, wait, no, that's not why I'm here. That's not why I'm here. And that began for me a journey of realizing for those first 5 years of being a mother to a child with Down syndrome, I had yet to undo the thing in me that was initially opposed to having a child with Down syndrome to begin with. So I can look at it now and call it ableism. And that just because you have a child with a disability doesn't mean like, snap, it's done, it's undone. It's a process for me. It's been work, right? And so that was a moment of, oh my gosh, like my aha moment.
Yeah, right.
Of wait a second. There's a difference between helping my children with Down syndrome be their best self and pushing them to be more like what everyone else says they should be in order to have value and worth. And that was a major left turn for me and began the work of undoing ableism in my own heart and in myself. And it's a journey and it can be a real struggle because I've got a 14-year-old who we've done all the things under the sun and she's not reading past like preschool sight words and she's not writing anything more than the word mom and her name. She's 14.
Yeah.
And guess what? She's amazing. Yes, we're going to push her to be her best self, but she doesn't need to do those things to have value and worth and be a full contributing member, fully embraced as she is in this world. So that really started down this other path of there's a bigger Down syndrome story to be told because we're inundated. I felt as a parent to a child with Down syndrome in a social media space with an audience and a platform that I was being inundated with the like feel good stories of Down syndrome, that there's this next narrative being shared with me that that's saying to us, hey, there's actually a best way to have Down syndrome. And your kid with Down syndrome needs to be working harder, doing more. And it's like that be more, do more, made for more idea that we're like this rat race to get there. And my Macy, my incredible Macy, with breath in her lungs and a heart beating in her chest, worthy of a life in this world, she's the gift that has helped me to undo those harmful ways of thinking. And so that really is my constant battle and struggle of like, if I'm saying to the world who Macy is as she is enough, and I believe that, then I have to believe that about me, right? And then I have to believe it about you. And it's the invitation, and we have to step into it. It doesn't just happen. We have to step into it, take the step, do the work. And that started with me all those years ago when Macy was 5 years old. And I had that moment of, whoa, there's so much here that I've been missing.
That's awesome. Well, and I think about purposeful progressions, like when she says that, when I think about at the Playhouse, because, there is not, we do everything from one-on-one tutoring and literacy, math, speech therapy, career program, everything that we do, everybody's at their own level. And that's exactly where we want them to be. And, the way that we obviously do not work on developmental milestones or growth, that's the way that we track growth is through purposeful progressions. So you
I love it.
That's my favorite. Like, I remember when we had all those therapists come in and we said, gosh, we have to make sure that we have metrics on our programs to make sure that they're growing, or in one way, in one form or another. They don't have to, whatever that may look like, just so that they're healthy, that they're able to live their best life. That's the most important thing. And what does that look like? It's not meaning they have to get to another grade level. Maybe it's just they have to have eye contact for a little bit longer to help them be more comfortable in social settings. The purposeful progressions can be anything. Yeah. And that's what I loved. I remember when I was looking at these metrics that they had sent in, and we had a team of therapists in here to revamp all of our programs to add kind of that therapeutic piece to it. So parents were also getting some therapies when they were getting any of their programming here. So therapy through fun. And I remember I was like, you know what, please don't ever use that word developmental milestones, because nothing hurt me more when Gigi was a baby was the word developmental milestones, and was that chart of, a typical kid and then a kid with Down syndrome. I just think that is horrific. I don't think that anybody should ever be compared to a chart. Anytime I was sitting there getting her tested, I never had you tested when you were little, yet here they were judging her and testing her, and all of that stuff just made me feel like less than, because I couldn't get her to even where they thought she should be on that chart. So we've always, and I still continue to do that with the purposeful progressions with myself and with her, always trying to strive to be a little bit better every single day, whether it's in your attitude, whether it's in your workout, whether it's in your personal journey, whatever that looks like, is just try to be a little bit better and grow in some form every single day. So I agree with you. I hear you, because that is such a big piece. It's, and it reminds me of Fionn from Ireland, who, when he was there, his dad was saying, he doesn't want to learn about this or that in school. He wants to be a musician. He wants to be an environmentalist. Give me the money and let him be what he wants to be. And that's what they did. Yeah. And he is a very, extremely accomplished young man these days, letting people
He's focusing on what he wants to thrive
100%.
On, because it's the things that he's most interested in, and no one's forcing him into this little box that society's making him.
Yeah.
As so many others are, and I think it's a really important thing, because I think another thing too is like one of the issues is like when it comes to like expectations that you want to be able to put on your child, whether it's a child with disability or not. Like there are expectations put into place, but like being able to define the difference between those expectations and like what those milestones, like what are you supposed to be doing, and like what are you kind of like just expected to be doing in life. And I think like with Gigi, like there's always been that expectation for her to like be strong and to be who she is. Like Gigi's a strong person who has a lot of resolve, but there's never been this expectation like she needs to fall into the category of where her peers are at, like in her classroom and stuff. And I think that like being able to find that happy median, which Heather, it seems as if you've done the same thing with Macy as well. It's just that that's where you find like that ultimate happiness, both with a family and with being an individual that's just living their life.
Yeah, I love when you talked about you said you weren't going to, adopt somebody with Down syndrome from the beginning. And I remembered when I couldn't get pregnant after you, and I wanted to adopt a child with special needs at that time before I then got pregnant with Bella. Danny said the same thing. Like, no, we can't, we can't take that on. We can't take that on. And like, it's just, why can't we? You know what I mean? And at that time, my mom had always run the spread group at my church. Like, I'd always been exposed to that. I was cool. I was like, no, I think we could do it. I'm good with it. Like, I know that we could make that happen. But what is that? But then when Gigi was born, I was petrified. I was like, oh my God, I willed this on my family now. Like, I asked for this, and now I don't know what to do with it, because in my head, why in my head there was a textbook picture to me. Down syndrome was like, I had a textbook picture of a black and white picture of somebody with Down syndrome with their bangs cut right here and their tongue sticking out. Like, I had a terrible image of Down syndrome. And why did I have that? I wasn't raised that way. My mom always had people with special needs around me, but why? There was this picture in my head of what I thought it was and what I thought people were going to be seeing in my daughter. And it was, and I remember it. And then the reaction of the medical, of our doctors when they came in, really made me think, oh my God, that's how they're seeing her too. They're seeing that same image that I can't get out of my head, this black and white photo why is it there? Why is that there? It was like old, like almost like a asylum cut. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know why that picture was ever in my brain and why I had that. And it was something I had to overcome. You're right. There's that time of grief and of that, whatever life you think you're going to have for yourself. I thought, like, our plan was when she was born in August or September, we were going to be at Disney. I had a trip planned for Disney World in November. You just kind of, life just kind of went on. Well, we didn't know we'd be having open heart surgery in December. Like, all these other things happened. So there is that. It's really interesting when you talk about that grief time and that you recognizing 5 years later that, why did I think that way? In that moment, like, no, I'm not doing it. And have I gotten rid of all that? You know, it took, because I know, getting rid of that 1950s textbook terrible image in my head. Isn't that horrible? I shouldn't even admit that out loud, but that's what I had.
Well, I think it's touched on too what Heather said earlier too, is that disconnect that between what that previous mindset was on, what your typical Down syndrome diagnosis, like disability diagnosis, looks like versus what it really looks like once you are a part of that
exposed
life
to it
and have that life and that exposure. And I think I'm assuming that's why you really want to tell those stories, because what I really wanted to get into also with you, Heather, is what you're doing with this Down syndrome project. I think it's such a beautiful thing, and it's something that I've always really wanted to get those stories out there of families, meeting so many families coming through Gigi's Playhouse. I think each one of them has just so many incredible milestones that they've accomplished in their life, and they're just so proud. And so many families are just so proud of the people that person in their life with Down syndrome. And what was that inspiration for you to want to help amplify those stories out there more? Because I have my perspective on it, but I want to hear yours first.
Yeah,
sure. In this journey of like the undoing of my misunderstanding of what Down syndrome is, and then I have my son August too. So I have Macy's 14 and August is 9. And August, in terms of like from an outside perspective, if you just watch the two of them and as they've developed, August has surpassed Mason in his language, in his reading, in his writing, in his physical activities and skills. Years ago, people would say, who's his speech therapist? What are you doing? What are you doing? And I'm like, y'all, he's my third kid. He's getting nothing. Like, Mason got all the therapy. Macy's my first kid. And August has surpassed Mason in language. There's this. So here's I'll get to why we started this is Down syndrome project. Okay, there's little pieces here to connect. So I have these two extremes in the Down syndrome space, and so I'm doing my own work of undoing ableism in my own life. I'm saying society detached from Down syndrome has this narrative that I know is not real, is not true. Sorry, it's not a true narrative. It's not a fair narrative. It dehumanizes an entire people group because of what they can or can't do equals their worth or not. And then I enter into Down syndrome. And I think what we've done as a community, and this can be controversial and not everyone's going to agree. I think what we've done is like the Down syndrome community, I'm using air quotes, listeners, is swung the pendulum real hard to say, but my kid with Down syndrome can. And that's not a wrong thing to do. But in that narrative, we have created this idea that if you have a kid with Down syndrome, have no fear, look what they can do, which is most like people without Down syndrome. So we're feeding the narrative. We're saying your kid with Down syndrome actually has more value and worth when and if they do things that are most like people without Down syndrome like. And think of any video that you've watched that's gone viral in the last 5 years and list the things. Go to college, run a marathon, swim speak at a TED Talk, whatever it is, right? If they do these things, they have value and worth. So we're taking that ableism and we're just perpetuating it in a different way within our own community. So, and personally, my Macy doesn't fit there. So now we're in the Down syndrome community and it's the same messaging of, well, Mason's value and worth actually still is attached to what she can or cannot do, because look what people with Down syndrome can do. But what if your kid with Down syndrome can't? Right? Like, what do we do when our kid with Down syndrome can't? Again, I'm not limiting her. This is who she is, and it's not bad. It's not bad. Her best self isn't going to be this kid with Down syndrome's best self. It's going to be her best self. So,
just like every person.
And over the years and being in this space, meeting so many families that are like, I don't even want to go to a Down syndrome whatever conference because I just feel terrible about who my kid is within the community, right? Because they're not doing A, B, C, and D. And so how do we tell the bigger story and celebrate every single life
100%.
of a person with Down syndrome? Every single one. And not if and when, but period, full stop. You have breath in your lungs. You have a heart beating in your chest. You have Down syndrome. You are worthy of a space in this world. You are not better or less. You are your own person with intrinsic value and worth. Let's celebrate you. So it really unfolded as, how do we make sure that everybody who enters the narrative sees themselves in it and sees themselves as good
and celebrated
with Down syndrome? Yeah, and celebrated and embraced. You know,
it's a really important perspective.
Well,
yeah, and so in the This Is Down Syndrome project, we're like, I don't know, we're about 300 stories in or so.
Yeah,
and it's a person with Down syndrome, and then whoever's a part of that bigger pod. So it's less about the story of that person with Down syndrome and more about, hey, here's this person with Down syndrome. This is who they are uniquely. And this is how people in their sphere have been affected by them. And so you're hearing stories from grandparents and coaches and friends and family and dads and moms and cousins and, coworkers and employers and all of that, and teachers. And so then we've been very intentionally to be ethnically diverse and socioeconomically diverse and diverse in where we're at in the United States, because you got to see yourself in the narrative if we're going to really shift it.
That's awesome. Yeah, and when you think about, like, even none of my kids would have been marathon runners, so I compare
totally.
When you think about that, that is a different way of seeing things and celebrate everybody as they are. That's that purposeful progressions. Every person is who they are. We're all unique individuals, and we should be celebrated for that. And I see that every single day here. And our programming has been completely adjusted. We thinking for where do people want to be. But you know what? Many of our families have come back and said, nope, we don't need any career skills. We don't want that. We just want a life worth living. And we want, and which is really important. There's
really
still a
important
lot of skills and a lot of socialization we can teach and be doing things, but just not taking them to another level that they don't all want to go to. So I think it's just seeing everybody where they are. And I think that's such an important piece, And understanding, not just like in the typical population, not everyone's going to be able to do everything. Not everyone's going to have this talent. Not everyone's going to have that talent. And that's okay.
Well, I love the concept too, and how you're doing that project, this Down syndrome project, and the idea that you're talking with so many people within their sphere of influence, and that you're hearing the value that they see in them, because it's not necessarily these crazy things that are happening in their life where, like, you're only spotlighting those people that are doing these, like,
great
just
things,
really and just like the things that are expected of. So the fact that you're celebrating just those impressions, I guess, that they're having on people, and just spotlighting those to show, like, this is truly what it is ingrained, and this is the different side of it from all these different people. I think it makes it that much more important for then, if anyone sees it, they could see, like, say, if you're someone who doesn't have a child with Down syndrome, or someone in your life with Down syndrome, but you're a head coach of a youth baseball team, and next thing you know, a kid comes through and he has Down syndrome, but you've seen, say, one of those stories, and you've seen the impact that person had on someone else's life, and you're like, well, maybe I can make an impact on they can make an impact on me, and I can make an impact on them that way. And the way that you're sending what we call the ripple effect, which is, I'm sure you know that same concept. You send that off to so many different people of so many different diverse backgrounds and whoever they might be, to open up their hearts to someone to come in that's going to positively impact them. And that's really the way that you're going to be able to spread that ultimate acceptance and inclusion for people with Down syndrome or all disabilities. I mean, that's the idea. Like, I love this project that you're doing so much, the idea of sharing these stories, because that's when you can relate. I don't have to be a mom or a dad or a sibling. I could be a person in my community that just happens to have an opportunity to change, to be impacted, and to then impact. And that's now I've seen someone capture it before, and I could do that. Yeah. So
yeah, for sure. And we're really big with telling all of our storytellers to tell a story, not necessarily your diagnosis story, not necessarily the hero story, but like that time that you were driving down the road in the truck and your grandson's in the front seat and the windows are down and the music's blasting. Tell that story. Yeah. Tell the story of that time that your brother came and sat down next to you while you're playing video games. Just tell that story. Like, we're not looking for a hero story. Yep. We're just looking for a human story. 100%. Because that's how we're going to relate to it and relate to one another. It's that, like, the goal here is to show the world the intrinsic value and worth of a human, all the humans. That's the goal here. And of a human with Down syndrome, because I think we live in a world that we're all pretty desperate to know that we have value as we are. I think we're exhausted hustling. We're exhausted with all the self-helpness, and not that there's not a place for that. That's not what I'm saying. But I think we're all striving real hard to be something when all we're hoping is that people are like, wait, just, you're okay. You're okay. You're good. Right? You're good.
Oh, without a doubt.
Just period.
Whatever makes you feel good.
I mean, that's ideally
and I can see it in others, and therefore I can see it myself. Because I don't think if we can see it in others that we're able to see it in ourselves. I don't have a lot of research on that. That's just my theory.
I like it. It's a good theory, because I mean, we definitely live in a world where everyone's seeking self-validation.
Oh.
Yeah.
And
we're also living in a very shallow world. I mean, our kids are being brought up staring at themselves and taking pictures of themselves on a constant basis. I mean, that's
seeking
all they know.
Validation by putting it out there. And I think that
constant.
The fact that there's, opportunity to put things out there to avoid that type of self-image is definitely an important piece. And I think it's a beautiful thing that you're doing, is that you're, sharing those stories, that it's okay to be you.
Yeah. I think it's awesome your husband's doing it with you now.
Yeah,
it's kind of become a family business. Yeah, that's really cool.
Work from home, always together. It really is the best. We joke about it a lot. Like, here we are again, just together.
Just us. Here we are.
But I am very grateful. I've found an incredible partner in life, and I'm so unbelievably grateful for him.
When you look at those twists and turns, and you have to have the right partner that's gonna, when we started the very first Playhouse, I remember my husband was like, well, that's it then. There's not another kid. There's not another child. You know what I mean? You can't have another child and then start this thing that you want to do that's all for free. Like, it's going to be consuming. And I was like, oh, it's fine. I could do it. But the fact that he stepped in with me to go on this adventure, as and then it starts to blow up. And next thing you know, now we're at 57 locations. We're serving families in 83 countries. Like, it's bigger than we ever thought it was going to be, but he stayed by my side through the whole thing, and he's supported through all of it. And he obviously, how that goes, had to help with the kids while you're speaking somewhere or going somewhere. And there's a lot that, you need that strong partner to be able to do something so bold and courageous like what you're doing, and getting out there and just sharing a message to the most important population in my world, which is Down syndrome. So I'm so beyond grateful to you for what you're doing. And I'm just glad, like, I kind of live in this, like, I don't know enough about all the people that are out there doing amazing things, because I live in, like, my little GiGi's bubble that I know, I
very
totally
ingrained
do.
with
Like,
God.
and it's been like 2020 was my time to get out of that. Like, okay, I'm getting out of the business of Gigi's and getting more into partnerships and being out with people. So January 2020, I like hit the ground running. I was out meeting people from all these different foundations, and I'm like, oh my gosh, you guys are doing this. This is awesome. And then all of a sudden, COVID hit. And we were shut down, and everything was shut down. So I finally am getting back to that place where I can be out with other people that are doing some amazing things and learn more about it. Because, right now, it for all that time, it was just in passing. Because we're continually growing. There's continually things happening. We're opening playhouses. We're doing this. We're doing that. And I haven't been able to do the part of Gigi's and acceptance, global acceptance that I've wanted to because of everything else that got in the way. So I'm really excited that COVID is behind us now. It's,
What's also a beautiful side, and the side that I really want, I want to dive into more too when it comes to GG's, but when it comes to working in the Down syndrome community, is the idea that there are so many people in different lanes doing so many different things and being able to
partner more. Yeah.
Being able to partner and collaborate more on ways because, I mean, like you said, COVID got crazy. You got very ingrained in having to figure out the structure of how GG's programming can happen virtually and how we could be able to continue to make impacts, through programming. Where then, Heather, you're out there being able to change perspectives through storytelling and by being able to have people see a different perspective of a diagnosis. And I think, you see the research organizations being able to do those things. I mean, like, that's the thing. You're able to focus on the lane that you're in and do some life-changing stuff. But the idea of being able to then come together and share ideas
help each other,
and help each other
Yep.
is the ways that we can really be able to make those real big, long-lasting impacts that are going to change the entire face of a diagnosis and a population of people.
Yeah.
And,
For sure. It's definitely, collaboration is the name of the game. Competition's just going to stop us all from trying. We all have the same end goal, I believe.
Same
right?
end goal.
We want a world where our kids walk outside the front door and as they are, they're celebrated and embraced.
Absolutely.
Period, right? And have access and opportunity.
Yep.
That's what we want. I think all of us want that.
Yep. And not one of us can do that alone. We can only do that together. And the collaboration, the thought of anything being a competition, there isn't a competition when it comes
There's
to
no
making
room
a better
for it.
life for
There's
our
no
kids.
room for it.
Absolutely.
It's counterproductive.
Can't compete to make a better world. You got to just do it together.
Yep. Absolutely.
Yes, you guys.
Yes.
I'm here for it.
I know, me too. I said it killed me in 2020 because I was so excited to get out there and start because I probably, and I know I've been looked at like that I just do my own thing. I don't do my own thing. I was just so focused on what we were doing and providing the best programs for our families and our playhouses. I was so internal. Even though I was external, because I was going to openings, I was doing some things, but it wasn't the external I want to be, that I know I can be, where I can really help people, and different organizations. I know that there's more that I could be doing to be on that outside. So that is now that my 2020 goal got smushed, that now 2023, that is 100% the goal, and the board is helping us make that happen. So I'm really, really excited to be going out there and doing more partnerships, a lot more collaboration. I think we can do so much more together, so many amazing groups doing amazing things, and our kids deserve it, and they need it.
Yeah.
And
I love it. And it's a season. You were in a season of, you
Yes.
started a thing and then you were running hard, and there's nothing wrong with any of that, right? Like things come and go in seasons, and this is a new season for you, Nancy.
Yes,
and
I know.
exciting.
I'm so excited. I know. I'm
Right.
so beyond excited about it. And I think part of it too is that Gigi can be who she wants to be in that lane. Whatever that looks like.
Yeah.
Right now, it's just all about the boyfriend. So, she can
Yeah.
care less about anything else but her boyfriend. Oh, sorry. You got a question?
And the next
Sorry.
question that
Oh,
she
sorry. She's like pointing,
has
like,
to
can I
ask
speak
her.
now?
She's like,
Sorry,
you
Gigi.
guys have
I would love
commandeered
it,
my whole
Gigi.
podcast.
If you had one message to the world, what would it be?
My one message to the world, what would it be? My message to the world is, I'm talking to individual people. You are good, and you are loved, and you are enough.
I love it. That is
do you think of
awesome.
that
Gave me
message,
goosebumps.
Gigi?
Something so simple. You know what I mean, Heather? Like,
But so overseen.
Yeah, so simple, but so beautiful.
Overlooked.
I mean, and so needed. It reminds me of earlier we were talking about with somebody, and they were saying, if everybody could just have a friend who has Down syndrome, just gets the opportunity to be a friend. I was like, you know what, when you think about having a mentor, I think mentors are important to people, you know, in business and success and where you want to, like, but if you have to me, a mentor, having an individual with Down syndrome be your mentor is more, you know, to your soul, to your heart, to your, you know, it's not about success or where you can go like you are with a regular mentor. It's about who you can be and how much you have in your heart to give. You don't even know until you get the opportunity to meet with some of the most amazing people. And I mean, GiGi grows my spirit. All of the incredible individuals with Down syndrome that I'm so blessed to be around with every single day grow my spirit and grow my heart every single day. And I do think everybody should have the opportunity to meet somebody with Down syndrome and to be blessed to be around that person.
And mentored by
my oldest is 14, and 14 years ago, and I was sharing earlier how I would be in a park or I'd be in a space and I'd think, oh my gosh, this little girl is mine. I get to be her mom.
Yes.
I have those moments every day, like watching her just be in the world.
Yeah.
Like just you being in the world is such a gift to this world.
Yeah.
Just be
Thank you,
here
God.
in this world. And I get, oh my gosh, I get to watch you.
Yeah.
Wow. It happens to me with my son too. People are always like, how come we don't talk about August as much? He's a magical human. Macy was my catalyst, right? She was my catalyst, my starting point.
Yes.
So when I tell the story, it's always like Mason was the one who started that, paved that way for me.
Yeah.
And August
brings a different perspective, though, which I think is amazing, though. But Heather,
he's an unbelievable little guy.
That to me is another gift from God, where you can see, you see both sides. You know what people are going through, and I think that's really, really cool. I didn't know that there was that difference in them. I think that's really cool. I think that helps really shape your perspective and really gives you an opportunity to help so many people by saying, look at. Raised the same way, same parents, you know, and they're both perfect as they are.
They're both incredible. Yeah, they're just both incredible humans doing their thing. Couldn't be more different.
Do you have any other kids, or is it just August and Macy?
No,
I have a middle daughter, Truly.
Truly. Sorry,
Truly.
Yeah.
So she's 11.
And Truly doesn't have Down syndrome.
Truly doesn't have any disabilities. Yeah, no Down syndrome.
That's awesome.
So how do you think being a sibling of 2 siblings with Down syndrome has shaped her? I'm always curious, you know, from a sibling's perspective.
Because he loves the whole sibling story.
Totally. Oh my gosh, I'm just listening ears with siblings. It's layered, as it is for anybody. All 3 of my kids are adopted. Truly is also the only person in the family who has brown skin. And doesn't know her birth family. And there's like lots of layers there that I think we're going to live her whole life not knowing what's what in terms of her reaction to a scenario, because we can't separate any of that. So yes, she's sandwiched between 2 siblings with Down syndrome. It's also all she's known. There wasn't a time in her life when she didn't have a sibling with Down syndrome. Will there be issues moving forward in her life for all those reasons I listed? Yeah. You know, like we hold it real gently. My husband and I are very aware of, as much as we possibly can be, of her circumstances in our family unit. And again, this is all she knows. Like she's her own person, and we celebrate her and embrace her and love her. And I think that it's going to be something she's going to have to figure out how to navigate in her life. And her dad and I are here to support her in whatever ways she needs, but ultimately it's her story. You know, it's her journey. I
think that's such
she'll figure it out.
I think it's such an important piece too, like being able to come from parents knowing, like acknowledging that you understand where they're at, like to a really like real level. And because then I feel like there's that much more willingness to ask for help and guidance in that place, because they don't feel like you don't think that they should be, you know,
feeling any different,
or any like.
I think it's awesome, just the openness.
I
do
really
think
important
for me with my kids, but again, only having 1 child with Down syndrome and then 3 typical, as whatever typical is, right? I couldn't have made my kids who they are today without GiGi. So their empathy, their compassion, their stewardship, their service to others, they are the people who they are, mostly because of her. And they've grown up with a playhouse. I mean, like in there, they've had to work their whole lives. There's not one of them that hasn't painted, clean the toilet, whatever it takes at a playhouse somewhere across this country that they haven't been involved in. So they've kind of been involved in that service area. But I also don't think without her as a sister, I don't think that they would be the people they are today. And I thank God every day for that.
And there's a statistic out there I heard recently that 80% of people who have a sibling with Down syndrome wouldn't change anything about their sibling with Down syndrome, which I don't think can be said about people not wanting to change anything about their other sibling.
Right.
Yeah.
And that might not be true for Truly. She might fall into that 20% category.
And that's okay.
We will navigate that if that's what happens, right?
Yep.
There's not going to be the gift that my kids with Down syndrome have been is that we're not going to shame you for being you. Like we're going to navigate it together. We're going to come alongside you. Like, yeah, there's openness and you can feel how you're going to feel. Like, how do you not? How do you not? So, but I believe Truly, I always say to people, and when people feel really sad for Truly, like they're really worried about, does she get enough attention and whatever it is? And because they see, a fraction of my life online, so they think they know everything. But Truly has always been the kid in the family that has demanded the most attention and gotten it. Like she's fine,
awesome.
like and
Totally.
She's an incredible talent. She's a
awesome.
songwriter and a singer and an actor, and she's gorgeous and like she's gonna do huge, amazing things. And I am like, thank God she has Macy and Augie to tether her to this world. Otherwise, she might be a hot mess, or maybe she still will be. Like, I don't know. She's 11.
Yeah.
We're figuring it out.
Who knows what? Yeah. And you know
Very
what I
true.
think about? I had some friends who their oldest had autism, youngest had Down syndrome, and the middle kid was had no diagnosis to speak of as of today. And you know what? Living a great life, had a great life, still loves his brother. There were 3 boys, and so it's just life. Brothers beat up each other. They still beat each other up. They still had, a family unit that was awesome. And, you just never know where you're going to go. Like you said, two kids with the exact same diagnosis being raised the same way, both at different levels. And that's the way life is.
The way life is.
All right, Gigi, did you?
Well, you have a question.
Oh,
I
my
would
question.
assume, that kind of
she's messing me up.
centers
She's like
around the entire.
Yes, girl.
platform of what this
And I
is.
think I know this answer, but she keeps surprising me. I don't know, Heather. You got
okay.
she comes up with stuff. So it's really like I'm writing notes over here. I'm really, first of all, I'm honestly so grateful that you came on here and I got to learn about you. I've been on your podcast and you had to hear all about me, and you're just fascinating. And I'm just so blessed that you are out there fighting for our community. And I thank you. I thank you for being on the show today. And obviously it's called A Little Something Extra. And I wanted to ask you, what do you think is your little something extra? What drives you? What's your superpower? What makes you be the amazing advocate and fighter that you are?
Oh gosh. Okay. Thank you for saying all those kind things. First of all, I'm so grateful to be on the podcast as well and to know you guys and to call you friends. I feel really blessed by that.
Oh.
Okay. My little something extra. When I was younger, I'm going to take you guys back again.
It's okay. We like
Take us
it.
back.
When I was younger, during some of my formative years, I was bullied, and that created something. It changed the way that I then went into the world, which I didn't realize for many, many years, really until recently in my 40s. Well, I'm only 41. I'm very young. And I've wanted and sought after belonging I think my whole life,
Wow.
especially since those early years. And then I had my kids who enter a world that tells them you actually don't get to belong in most of the spaces in this world. And so I think my little something extra is that 5th grade self in me that says, no, you do get to belong. And so do these kids of yours. And so does everybody. So what do we need to do to make that happen? What do we need to do to make that happen? That's my little something extra, that desire for belonging for all people.
Wow. See, I told you you'd surprise me. She always comes up with a zinger. Like, I'll be like, oh, that's a good one. That's really awesome. Sorry that you were bullied, but happy that it made you do what you did. because you
Yeah,
are
thank you.
making changes, and we're excited to be a part of it and help in any way that we can. I know that didn't you do a shoot at our New Orleans location or something? Didn't you do something with New
We
Orleans?
did, yeah.
That's
Yeah,
so cool. And
the
I
New
think,
Orleans location hosted us. They were very gracious.
oh, that's very awesome. And I think it was after we were there. That was
Right after conference.
yeah.
Yep.
Yep, last summer. Oh, very cool. Well, girl, whatever we could do for you, we are big fans, and we are so happy you're here. Oh, Gigi, did you want to? Oh, your tips. Oh my gosh, hurry! You got to do your tips. She's got to go. She's a busy lady. She's writing books.
Sorry.
She's doing things. She's got a documentary. I mean,
These are my tips.
Oh, okay.
For always being best.
okay,
First,
being your
yeah.
best.
What?
Being your best.
I did.
Oh,
Yeah, she
okay,
said
sorry.
it.
First you need to practice. Always be prepared. Wear a cute outfit like that you're wearing today. It always makes you feel good. And don't forget to smile. Those are my tips for always being your best.
Yes.
Good tips, Gigi.
Yes.
Noted.
And you
Gigi,
do
thank
look
you.
beautiful today. Gigi. I love it. Well, thank you
love it.
so much, Heather. Anything else that you want to add before we go? It was so awesome having you.
Yes, I'm just so grateful to get to have this time with you guys. Thank you so much.
I
More
know.
to come, you guys.
Yes, I know. I learned
Yes.
so much, and like I said, it's just you're right. Life is cyclical, and I'm at this place now, and I just feel so grateful that now I have the opportunity to learn so much more about all the amazing things that are going on out there, and what we can be a part of, how we can help. We're all in this together, and I'm so grateful that you were on.
Thank you.
Yes,
Thank you guys so
absolutely.
much.
Yeah, I would love to be able to connect with you too, to talk a little bit more about the This Is Down Syndrome project, because
Let's do
it's
it.
just something
Yeah.
that I
It's just like your
absolutely
IBS story.
love.
It's the
well,
same.
yeah, I mean, because we were like in the early stages of wanting to like do something similar, and I've seen what you guys are doing, and I'm like, why really invent the wheel?
Yeah, someone's
Yeah, we are all about collaboration and partnership. We
Yes,
would
Yeah.
so
love,
I love that concept.
love it.
So yeah, we'll definitely be in touch very soon.
very
can
cool.
Yeah, that sounds awesome. I love that.
Awesome.
Awesome.
Thanks, Heather.
Thank
Gigi,
you
say
so much for
goodbye.
joining.
Bye.
Everybody is born with a little something extra, and sometimes they just have to find it. A little something extra is that superpower that every single one of us has inside that motivates us and drives our passion and makes us do the things that we do.
We're all on the same team. Let's think about how we can make that team as inclusive as we can.
For those of you listening to our podcast right now, you can also check out our video podcast at alittlesomethingextrapodcast.org.